all my pages ripped out.
Yeah, exactly.
We did need a bigger binder.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, March 5th, 2015. We will be going forward with the FY16 budget. Anybody want to speak in regards to it? Meeting today?
Is there first going to be a little overview? Or
Well, there can be. You know, the school committee last meeting reviewed the budget at the 2.46% increase over this year's budget. We did note that there were a couple of items that we chose not to put in the budget because we were trying to sort of meet the directive of the town administrator to try to remain under the 2.5% increase level. Since the meeting, there has been some further discussion. I met, and Joan and I actually met with Barry Belanger to talk about buses. You know, at one point we were talking about, you know, taking the opportunity to eliminate completely the double bus run. But in looking at the information and the data, and looking at the issues with, you know, coming up with, you know, the money in the budget, and even for the town to come up with the money at this point, you know, we want to try some different things before we do that. You know, we can't promise we can sell seats, and, you know, we have to do a whole process of registration, but our hope would be that we could get as close to the single bus run with 5 buses as we can by perhaps reorganizing some of the routes, perhaps increasing some of the time that some of the students are on the bus. So I would recommend, and the administrative team will recommend, that we would take that off the table at this time. So the only addition that we, you know, would have liked to make to the budget, as we discussed last time, was the 0.5 maintenance position. Joan did some figuring on that, and had we included that in the budget increase would have been 2.61%, or basically $20,000 over the budget that we presented to you. Obviously, you know, our intention, if we could, would be to, you know, to add that, just because, you know, it's a matter of, you know, day one when the building opens, we really want to make sure that we have the ability to have all of our more sophisticated mechanical systems running it as they should, maintain all of the, you know, the grounds. There's going to be a lot of new plantings that need to be carefully maintained. You know, even though the fields will not come online until the summer of 2016, there will be some maintenance required, and, you know, so if we add it, it's 2.61% increase. Other than that, you know, I think we've kind of gone through the budget. You know what is included and what isn't included. You know, there were some difficult decisions that we all have had to make. I'm sure that's happening across the town with, you know, all the budgets that people have prepared and that FinCom's reviewing. But, you know, our recommendation is that the school committee at least consider maybe adding the part-time custodian in, or I'm sorry, maintenance person in. But that would really be your choice, and then we would all work on defending it either way. But I think, you know, you did discuss the budget in quite an extensive process in the last couple of meetings. So Joan and I would be happy to answer any questions. Michael and Lorene, as budget and finance subcommittee, did talk with us this morning, and you know, we did discuss what we're talking about now. You know, what would be the best thing to do, and you know, they can sort of speak to what they're thinking on that at this point. But if there's any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Yeah, I would say I fully support taking the additional buses out at this point till we have more information. We talked about a number of different things that we should probably do to understand that situation more carefully.
Yes.
But I do fully support the half FTE for the maintenance person. I think it's important to keep this brand new school well maintained, and I think looking at it as a half an FTE and not being so aggressive there makes sense. And looking at, you know, what you need for this year and the possibility of that moving to a full-time, I think, person the following year.
Right, when the fields come online.
Right, right. So I support those sort of last two changes that we talked about.
Yeah, and I agree, and essentially for the same reasons as Lorraine. I think doing the investment of the new school and everything that goes with it, I think it's silly. It's absolutely an expense, but we're investing a lot of money. We want it to last, and I think everyone would be pretty upset if 5 years down the road it looked like a 20-year-old school because we weren't taking care of it the way that we need to. So
Cannot
Right.
happen.
That cannot happen.
yeah.
I know, I've heard, during the time when we were talking about getting a new school, that was one of the concerns of the townspeople before is, Pembroke wasn't maintained the way it should have been. Not to say that, it could have lasted much longer, but, the town, like you had said, the town's investing so much money in this beautiful product that we're gonna have for the kids, and I do think that it's money well spent.
And MSBA is actually expecting us to spend a certain percentage of money, because they're making a 54% of the investment, 52 or something is their commitment. So they're expecting us to, maintain and clean and maintain it.
I was going to ask, are there any state guidelines as to number of maintenance positions per square foot, or I mean, I know, and that wouldn't quite take into account the fields, and it's a unique project, but are there any such guidelines that might?
Well,
Standards for custodial.
There are
but I'm not
custodial.
sure about the maintenance, but
Okay.
there are square footage standards, I would say, and then we did sign with MSBA that we would follow those standards, so.
And the 4.5 positions would be in
Right.
line with those
yes,
standards.
yes,
Okay.
yes, definitely.
That's-
I think
Oh, I
the
wanted to
additional
clarify.
information too that Mike submitted, around what needed to be done and
Oh,
what
yes,
wouldn't
yes,
be
yes.
done,
Yeah,
clearly justifies it as well.
yes.
And that might be an important sort of document to bring to the, the next meeting,
Mm-hmm,
Yes, that makes sense.
because it was pretty detailed.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And to explain to the VinCom and the community.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
And I think it does sort of, without knowing what all the details and the savings would be, sort of pushing the townwide maintenance plan. I think it speaks even more. Kind of every time we go through this, it speaks even more to pursuing that, seeing if it makes sense, and from the school committee side, pushing that forward as much as possible. Because it seems like an opportunity, though not fully fleshed out, but it seems like at least an opportunity
Yeah.
to save some money there.
So are we here to discuss whether we submit a budget with this position included,
Correct.
or whether we submit a budget without it and then advocate for it on top? We could do
Well,
either one,
Correct.
is that right?
Yeah, so what we did at the last meeting, we had said we would go with the 2.46 increase, and then we would ask for assistance with the half maintenance person and then for the buses.
Right.
So,
Right.
the recommendation of the Budget and Finance Subcommittee is to include the half
Yes, in the
Correct.
budget.
maintenance, and then as far as the buses are concerned, it's something that we can look into. Mr. Belanger has done a terrific job with
Really,
the
yeah.
spreadsheet that he's provided, and the creative ways, I talked to him today, he has some creative ways to work around it, and I do think that, it could really work without
Right.
spending $100,000 plus dollars. Let's hope.
Yeah,
If anybody
it will
can do
all
it, I think
depend-
we can.
Yeah, it will all depend on how many people register and ride, but,
Right.
but
Right.
there are a lot of different things to pursue, and I agree with you, Barbie, that's why I said I think we should pull it off the table. We spent a lot of time talking, well, what about 6 buses? But again, I think with some of the strategies that we wanna investigate further, I think the best thing, the most fiscally responsible thing at this point in time, because it's not that the bus situation is so horrible and terrible.
Right.
However, it isn't educationally sound, and it would be nice to get it to the point where students could come and go from school and be back and forth within a reasonable time after the day ends and before school begins. And for most kids that ride the bus, that does occur. There's, we've been able to get a smaller and smaller number of students who have to have the double run. And we've got some ideas on maybe ways to make that reduce that even further. So we're not without options at this point, and, you know, really, until we looked at the data and the numbers very clearly, we realized that, you know, asking for 7 buses would be too much. We wouldn't need it. If we were gonna sell 200 seats, maybe, but that's really not our goal, isn't to sell seats. Our goal is to, you know, get the children who qualify for the bus to and from school in the most efficient way. So we're gonna go back and, you know, sharpen that up a little bit and take a look at it.
I do appreciate though that that you do take the bus situation extremely serious. You know, I mean, we talk about this
Well, yeah.
all the time, and just right now, it just doesn't seem, you know,
Well,
that
it's
it
not
is
gonna rise to
fiscally
the level of the
responsible.
other things that the decisions you have to make
Right.
as a committee and that we've
But
had
I'm
to
glad
make.
it's still on your radar.
Oh, it's
that you
definitely on the
know
radar,
It's
yeah.
not the
No,
most ideal situation, but
And you'll be continuously evaluating, and if this year to come, if
that's
it
right, in
doesn't
another
give it-
year, right, absolutely, we can always
it works
revisit,
out
but,
well, it works out well.
but
and if
right
it
now
works
that
out
we don't have
not well,
all the
sure,
information
can
we need and the
reevaluate.
timing isn't great, and we are trying
Right.
to work with the town, because the reality is, you know, we're not out of the woods yet, even with this budget, whether we do 2.46 or 2.61. You know, I mean, from what the town administrator said, after plugging in everybody's budgets, all the requests from the various town budgets, including, he has the figure of 2.46 for us, because we generally give it, you know, give it to them in advance a little bit, so they don't have to wait until now to have a sense of what the budget could be looking like. And they're having, Saturday, they're having their marathon day of meetings. And he pointed out at the department head meeting that the budget, with everybody's budgets in there, is $230,000 out of whack. So, you know, the governor had out of the governor's budget came some modestly encouraging news, but it still wouldn't, that even if the 100% of that new money from Chapter 70 adjustments and the undesignated local aid, it still wouldn't cover a $230,000 gap. So
It's not
who
level
knows?
services, we can't achieve level
it's-
services
it's not
for the
level
town
services.
or for the school.
That's right.
And
That's
that's,
right.
you know,
That's right.
There's more
So
money, but the cost of these
we may be
services are
we may be
going up, so-
revisiting the number that you send on anyway. I mean, hopefully we won't. Hopefully there'll be some creative strategies on ways to sort of come up with money so that everybody can have these modest increases that they're requesting. But you know, it's going to be in
and
another.
they are modest.
And they are. I mean,
They're not level services, so.
well, I think, you know, our goals were to have the money to open the new school and do that, you know, have a smooth transition. So we definitely moved things that we had to move, and we cut things to get to where we needed to get, so we could at least open that school smoothly. We have to meet contractual obligations, as any department in town, you know, has to do. You know, we're still keeping the Pearly open, so there's a lot of great plans for the Pearly, you know, including the senior center, you know, coming online in the middle of the year, and expanding our preschool and looking at a faculty daycare. And, you know, we still have to maintain some of the support staff there, which does hit the budget partly. So, you know, we were clear on what was driving it. We didn't add anything luxurious in here, and there's actually nothing that's really new in terms of programs and services. It just allows us to maintain most of what we have and have enjoyed, and the community has come to expect, to meet the mandates that we are required to do and to provide a quality education. But we didn't add things to enhance anything more. We literally just kept to those priorities and asked for what we needed to make that happen.
Right. I think that's why it's important to put that half a position in the budget, because it's not like we added things that you could then, you know, try to negotiate and say, well, we'll keep this or we'll keep that. We know that's a need.
That's right. Right, we did.
Okay, I am going to make a motion to,
What's the number they need?
I got it right here.
to move forward with, the FY16 budget, totaling $13,912,000.
Nope, 932.
Yeah, because we'd have to adjust it.
I thought I did the math right, but, okay, 932, 226?
226, yeah.
Okay, so in the amount of $932,226, which would be a total increase of 2.61%.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries.
We're still waiting for a time for the meeting.
Oh, on the
On the
11th,
11th.
March 11th.
So as
That
soon as-
would be at night, though, don't
Yeah,
you
it's
think?
it's generally at night, and, you know, again, it depends on if Sandy, what?
7 o'clock.
Oh, it
Mike
is?
Carroll
Oh,
said,
okay.
And Laura posted it.
Oh, perfect, there you go.
Oh,
Well, we're
okay,
not
and we
waiting for a
did
time.
get this room, that's right, there was a discrepancy as to whether we could get this room. We appreciate the planning board,
they had
moving
to
their
move,
meeting,
yeah.
which I know that's, not always an easy thing, but I appreciate them doing that, because I do think it's important that that meeting be televised, the one on March 11th. Okay, so March 11th, 7 PM, with the, Finance Committee, is Board of Selectmen also there? Okay, so it's just the
Finance
Finance.
and and what we'll do, now that you have made your final decision, I'll work with you, Barbie, tomorrow to get, you know, a letter
To
to
them.
put, so
Yeah.
we'll put it in the front of the book. Joan made adjustments to the pages based on the discussion last week, so now she'll just adjust those pages. So you'll get a set of adjusted pages, so you can just take them out of your book, but we will adjust the pages for the finance and board and selectmen, so when they get the books,
Yep.
they'll all be current and up to date. I'm gonna drop Sandy Garrity a little note, because the town hall's closed tomorrow, so the goal would be to get because this is a document that if you're gonna read it, you gotta have time to read it. You know, I would hate to see finance and advisory people get it like Monday afternoon and then try to make their way through it in preparation for a meeting on Wednesday, you know? So I'm just gonna ask Sandy, you know, if she wants me to drop the
Is the meeting
binders.
Wednesday? Is the 11th a Wednesday?
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a Wednesday.
It is,
They
okay.
always meet on Wednesdays.
Okay, and then we have a school committee meeting on
Thursday,
Thursday.
you do.
Okay,
Yeah, it is a
Okay.
back-to-back
Wow.
meeting night for you.
yeah, it's a busy time of year for
And
everybody.
you said on Wednesday we're gonna meet at 6.
Well, I was gonna have the budget and finance people were gonna
Just
meet
to-
at 6 to just kind of review, and then we were gonna go to the meeting at 7. I don't know is everybody coming to the meeting on?
The pre-meeting?
Yeah, March
Everybody, yeah.
But the pre-meeting, the 6 o'clock, would that just,
Well, you're more than welcome to, we'll post it, Barbie. It's really just for the budget, if the budget and finance subcommittee are gonna have some responsibility to, you know, participate, they just wanna make sure that, you know, they know exactly how that can, what that
Right.
can look like. Cause we've done it many different ways.
I know.
So it really depends on it's the school committee's budget, so it really does depend on, you know, what the school committee would like to, how you would like to do it. You know, we're happy to present it and you support. We're happy to have you say what you gotta say, and if there's questions, we'll answer. So that's why I said people should think about how they wanna see that meeting, you know, play out. I know they don't like PowerPoints, so we don't do PowerPoints.
okay.
They just don't like them. They've, you know, we used to do PowerPoints,
like
and then
them.
people said to me, Carol, no PowerPoints. Okay, no PowerPoints. So we usually will walk them through,
our
so
own
that's the
opinions.
discussion. So, you know, sometimes they don't want you to walk them through. That's why, what I think I will do, now that we have this, is I think I might just, when I email Sandy, I might just say to her, if you know in advance what kinds of things you'd like us to sort of focus on in the discussion with the Finance Advisory Board, she has in the past sometimes these are the questions that I think are gonna come up, and that's helpful, because then we can have
We'll
the
be
answers.
prepared, sure.
Yeah,
So you're
Even
gonna,
if they focus on the letter.
exactly,
I mean,
exactly,
they should look at the other stuff, but if they focus on
Right.
the letter, I think that's
right.
gonna really tell them a
the
good
highlights.
story.
so when will they be, like, for you to call Sandy and
Well,
say,
I was
okay,
gonna
so how-
email her
how
and
soon do
say,
you
well,
think
we
the
can
books
get
will
them,
be ready?
well, we can get them done tomorrow. The question is, does Sandy want us to, you know, drop them off at her house and people pick them up if they want over the weekend? Does she
We
want
did
us to
last.
have them at town hall by Monday
Yeah,
morning?
didn't you go to the school and pick them up, or did you
No,
go to
I put it at
Sandy's?
Sandy's house.
Okay.
So, you know, I think she said to me earlier, get them to Mike and he'll distribute, but just saying that, we can do that, but that'll mean Monday. Which is
Right.
fine, I mean, it's up to them, I don't expect them to work over the weekend reading our budget book, but, you know, I always think it's nice to get things to people as soon as they can, if they choose to wanna take a little more
Oh, are
time.
they're doing their Saturday all day thing? Right?
They are, now that's
Would
a
it be
thought,
worth getting them to that?
you know what? That's a good point. I could, even though I'm not, I could do that. I could get them there for, okay, good, very good point. I will follow up on that.
Are you attending the meeting on Saturday?
I don't know, because I don't, we don't have to
Right.
present, so it's really a question of the budget I'd be interested in supporting. I mean, I'd support everybody's budget, but in terms of if I would have a contribution, would be the police department, only because, you know, Chief Cudmore was speaking to me the other day about the school resource officer that he has put into his request. And he's doing that in response to the governor's task force on safety that has recommended that school districts have an SRO. Now, there aren't grants for that. We haven't, you know, that we had that great grant for 4 years, and then the police department funded it for a year, then we funded it, and then we shared it. So we've done all kinds of things. And, you know, as you know, the last year we haven't been able to, you know, really come up with any funding for it. So what the chief explained to me was that if a district can't fund an SRO, then the expectation is that the state police would fill that need. And the state police then would be, you know, the contact with the schools around, you know, having an officer. And, you know, that seems a little awkward to have the Georgetown police and then the state police sort of figuring out how to work together on that. So we're hoping it doesn't come to that, but I know that's something that the chief is going to talk about, you know, as part of his rationale. And, you know, how it works out is how it will work out. But that I would want, you know, I would want to be able to help answer any questions about the
That could
need.
be very significant, because I think I've heard the police department say that they've calculated that if there was, God forbid, you know, some kind of shooter incident, it would maximum take them 2.5 minutes
Yeah, 2
to
to
get to
3, yeah.
Pembroke, and like 1 and something minutes to get to the middle high school. But if we were talking about the state police,
No,
Yeah,
but a
I-
situation like that,
Yeah.
the town
yeah.
would be called on. It's
Okay.
just talking
It's
about
more
an
the school
SRO.
resource officer, so who would be the person
Yeah,
that would?
I mean,
we're not
if
talking
it-
about
But I
emergency
can't imagine that a
crisis.
state
Yeah, we're not
troop-
talking about emergency crisis, that
No,
would still
no,
be
no.
our town.
But I can't imagine that a
Okay.
state trooper would be able to have time to be on site,
Right.
you know, but again, I don't know how it works. That was
Yeah.
actually the first time
Let's hope
when
we
the
don't
chief
even
told
have
me
to.
that was the first time I'd actually heard that. So, you know,
It'd be
so,
hard for them to work together, I mean.
well, I think that's kind of, I mean, you know,
Our police
mean, if our
officers are so
police
good, they
officers
know
They,
the faculty, they know a lot of the kids, cause we're such a
Responsible
small
Exactly.
town, and
They're
exactly.
responsible for
Our
some
partnership
situations,
with,
but not all situations,
with
and
this-
which situations would the state police be, you know, that could get really
Well,
complicated.
our partnership with all of the town departments, truly with the police department, you know, it's been amazing. So, yeah, so I think we're all a little anxious about that, but again, I have to see how it all plays out, but I'm sure everybody, you know, will defend their budgets as best they can, and, you know, the town will make decisions based on what they feel they can do. I'm sure they'll give every consideration to everybody's budget, but, so we should know, I think they're seeing us on the 11th, we're the last budget, obviously, and then I think the way it's worked in the past is that they start immediately sort of really deliberating, you know, because they need to come up with a final budget, usually by the first week in April, definitely, because that's when they send everything, they have to get stuff ready for town meeting. So I think that they try at least to wrap up by the end of March, or as soon as they can, in advance of that sort of April 1st deadline, so they can make sure they have hit all the timelines. But, you know, there's still, you know, the state budget's still in flux. I mean, they, you know, have the 9C cuts. Now they've got the House 1, they call it, and now it's gonna go through the whole process of House, Senate, Conference Committee, you know. But what I said to people today, that asked me some questions about this, I said, what I think any committees or any citizens can do is they can contact their legislature. You know, our legislators like Lenny Mira and Bruce Tarr, because you know what, you know, that's the world they live in. You know, if they knew how important it was to, you know, really get this state aid, you know, through for cities and towns that have been level funded with Chapter 70 money or worse in some communities, you know, I mean, if
and
you're,
they've been so supportive to us.
they have,
as a
and
community.
so I don't think that would be a bad thing, is to just let them know why it's important. You know, that would help, you know, maybe the Finance Advisory Committee and others making those decisions, if they could guarantee that money was real.
Lenny Mira or Bruce Tarr.
Yeah, and who else? I'm trying to think. Those are the ones that I'm most familiar with, but But anyway,
that's a
it doesn't
great
hurt to
idea.
make a quick little phone call to just say, hey, anything you can do to support that, the governor's budget, we really appreciate it. Tomorrow morning, actually, in this room, at 8:00, they're having like they're doing these regionally across the state. They're having a legislative breakfast. And I think they were planning on like 54 people are gonna be here. And some of the local legislators in this whole region, so it's not just Georgetown, I think it's a number of towns, are coming, and I'd be interested, I'm gonna be there, I'm just interested to see, what the discussion, is, not only here, but in the region.
Oh, that'll be something you can share with
Yeah,
us.
I definitely will
Yeah.
share that with you, absolutely.
Okay, so
All right,
the
wonderful.
next meeting then is March 11th, next Wednesday, 7 p.m.
And then the
It'll be
12th is a
televised,
regular.
And then
school
regular
day.
school committee meeting on March 12th. Okay, that was all we had on the agenda this evening, so the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:35 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, good night.
Thank you.
That
Okay,
was-
that was good.